bring the Planning Commission, the Oconee County Planning Commission meeting to order. It was Monday, October 6th. And I'd like to start with the commission. Mr. Root, lead us in that.
Pray with me if you'd like to. Well, dearest Father, thank you for this day that you've made and have gifted to us. Help us to remember that this day is a gift, that this present moment is what we have, to enjoy it, to do our best in it, to love our neighbor, to love you, and to do right by your wisdom, by your guidance. And I pray by that wisdom and guidance you guide the Planning Commission this evening. Give them vision that is not ordinary but extraordinary, so they can see the problems that may arise in the future and find a way through that for the county. Give them your guidance, I pray in your name. Amen.
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 Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We had fairly extensive minutes. I appreciate all the hard work that you all put into going back through those so that we could see all the votes that took place. Do I hear an approval of those minutes from September 4th?
Motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Are there any changes that anyone saw that needed to take place? All those in favor then of approving those minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
So we did not have anybody sign up for anything?
Nothing.
Okay. No public comments, non-agenda items. Let's open it up for commission member comments. Any of the folks here want to say anything? All right. It's up to staff then. We're to staff comments. What's up, guys?
Only wish to add that I spoke with Chip Bentley at the Appalachian Council of Governments about the update to the comprehensive plan. He said that it was something that they were working on and they're preparing a presentation. And I'm looking to notify the board when that is ready for that.
And our responsibility as a planning commission is to,
You're going to basically be reviewing any of essentially what they're doing is they're looking at what the plan is, how the area has changed, and they will then be coming back and saying, these are the things that maybe what we want to look at as far as updating or considering in the next comprehensive plan. This really is a review at this point of how things are working and whether there needs to be any sort of course correction.
so the state doesn't require us then to have some sort of updated book or anything like that within the end of this year?
That's not a requirement, no.
Okay. Okay.
Simply that you can say, we have done a review of our comprehensive plan, and if you want to list findings or say these are the things that we want to change based on the Appalachian Council of Governments recommendations, then those are the steps that you may take.
Well, there definitely should be some stuff with the census having come out since then and the changes that have taken place
Certainly.
in the last several years. So look forward to that. Any other staff comments?
Not at this time.
All right. Discussion and recommendation regarding amendments to Oconee County ordinances, chapters 26, 32, and 38. I want to start by thanking the members of the Planning Commission for all of the dedication and hard work in reviewing and revising and creating ordinances that allow Oconee County to be the wonderful place that we call home. Social media often rules the day and with uproar and urgency, and We often see signs of it on occasion with huge numbers in the crowd. And I'm proud to say that the focus and understanding of putting pen to paper by this planning commission that designs the land use shields, we provide a shield of protection for the citizens of this county. Last year, the planning commission was instrumental in putting some density standards in place, which have proven to be beneficial deterrent in unchecked high-density development. This year, the planning commission has taken on the next steps of that process by cleaning up and correcting some of the ambiguity, definition conflicts, and several places of potential government overreach found within our development standards of those chapters. I'm sure everyone here realizes the importance of consistency in our county's application of our ordinances, and these next steps go a long way in closing the gaps that were left open to interpretation. With that said, who else might have anything to add to this as we get started? We've got before us Mr. Haney has put together, let me start by saying, staff has put together in chapter 32 in blue all the things that we have previously voted on as far as moving forward for Mr. Root to put into a ratified document. We have some things in gray, if I understand correctly, that are still up in the air that we still need to nail down with regard to 32. Mr. Haney has worked hard at putting together in chapter 26 all of the things that we have voted on. Those are in green, as well as writing in blue things that we need to nail down and or ask Mr. Root to nail down for us in a new ratified document that we can send up to council. Tonight, what I'd like to do is run through these, try to get as many answers as we can on the rest of these things being nailed down. We had asked Mr. Root in the last meeting to give us answers to a few things. As I was going through these, there were still a few areas, especially with regard to yard and the definition of yard as it relates to the definition of setbacks. Some of it seems to have some redundancy to it. Some of it seems to maybe overlap or contradict. And so I appreciate staff's efforts. Elise, you did a great job on pulling together everything with the word yard in it, with the exception of things like junkyards and where yard was simply out there. There was one page that it looks like court, comma, yard, probably was meant to be courtyard. But outside of that, these definitions within or where the word yard was found, and I've got it all written up in red where it seems to be in conflict with itself and with redundancy of the word setback. So look forward to talking about that as well. Starting, I'd like to maybe turn it over to Mickey Haney and see if he would like to kind of kick us off in a particular direction.
Yeah, I think there was 4 items that we needed to clear up in chapter 32. One of them was on the application review. That's section 32-220, plat requirements and review procedures. We had some discussion over the word shall, and in that discussion, we realized there needed to be some additional information met other than just approval, if I'm getting this correct. That kind of led my thought path down to, we was talking about state encroachments, but not every property that is along a state road needs a state encroachment permit. They may access it from a different side of the property. So I would like to, in this, actually call out what needs to be in its place for approval so that we fully understand what would keep them from getting a sign-off on that document.
And is this currently in there under a particular call number, or is this an addition to?
I'm not following you.
What you're talking about,
So this is the application for review, and it just says the planning director may approve minor and family transfer subdivisions containing no new roads after reviewing the final plan. And I knew in the past, we'd always approved those, and then there was a change made where we said, hey, there's some issues if we approve these, because they may be along the state road, you may be having driveways right beside each other, and create some issues on the state roads with traffic flows. But one of the things that I was hoping to do with this document is really clarify what was required and not leave it open for interpretation. And this is one of those areas where, what are the requirements for us to sign off on a minor family transfer?
and just for my own purposes, everybody may be up to speed, but I'm trying to find it here. Did you say
So-
32,222?
32,220.
220, that's why I couldn't find
Page
it.
15 of 28.
I was looking at 222. Thank you.
That's so small, I can't
So-
read it. I can't
I
see.
don't know where it's
I can't.
it's ordinance. So I will have to search for
Okay.
it. But I think somewhere, I'm pretty positive that somewhere it does state that the encroachment permit is required. So, no, let me back up, I'm sorry. So unless there is access from another, like from a county road, right? So say it's a corner lot, okay, county, state road. If they can get encroachment from the county, then it wouldn't be necessary for them to get it from the state.
Right.
But like I said, where that is, I'm not, and it could be pertaining to something specific and not broad. I'll have to find it.
So we're gonna postpone this until we get a better definition of what the requirements will be to get that signed off.
Try and find it. Do you know?
Could the question be, as far as, it says containing no new roads, and does it, if it also, did not contain state encroachments? Obviously, that would be, one of the things that we could, that would basically allow us to make that decision without any outside guidance, which is essentially what the issue is here, is that the mayor, the shall, is determinant on external forces. So if we can put this in a way where we basically remove anything that's affected by those external forces, in this case SCDOT approval, or whether we just make it subject to those external forces.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you, and I think the more important thing here is that they have egress and ingress to the property. So maybe that's what we need to put in this application review sentence, because it really, at that point, it doesn't matter whether it's coming from a private road, a state road, or a county road, as long as they are not landlocked. And that would kill two birds with one stone. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, Mr. Haney, I just want to make sure I'm caught up. So the provision you're talking about was what, I want to say it was 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half, where we added in 32,222, properties designed to access, let's keep our, designed to access state roads shall submit to and receive conditional approval from the DOT prior to receiving plat approval from the OC. Is that the provision you're concerned about? Or at least one?
State that.
32-222 A10.
So is that required for minor subdivisions?
As it is right now, it's any properties that are designed to access the state road. So I think it gets away from other types of thoroughfares, just staying away from roads, streets, or any other name, but roadway, we'll just say. So just ones that are designed to access it. Now, I don't see a carve out for minor. And I know that's kind of an organic topic now that we're, I guess, filling out what a minor subdivision may be.
Right, so,
Yeah, it might be something just to do a placeholder, just like you're talking about, let's move through
right.
and come back.
So the reason I didn't think it was applicable to that is because of section 32-221. When the school plan is basically all required for 10 or less. And then this goes into a detailed sketch plan.
Can I ask a question,
Yes,
clarifying question? What are the requirements for an encroachment permit? Is that what we're trying to figure out here, or what are our current requirements?
well, the question came up.
Because the reason I'm asking this is because there's a lot of people that I've talked to, I'm not giving any names, that have complained that the county is asking for encroachment permits on properties that already have right-of-ways into them. And they're complaining that the process is redundant to, right, that they already have access to county or state road. So I'm wondering, is that one of the reasons why we need to clarify this?
I
And
think part of that, dealing with the state roads, is if, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you're adding to it, that you have to file for a additional encroachment permit, is that correct?
So, yeah, so it's for, so you would apply for an additional, I don't wanna say additional, for an encroachment permit. If you have a piece of property that all of it is, has a state road running along, right, state road frontage, and you're splitting it in half, right? Where your house and your driveway to access your house is on this side, but now this side doesn't have access to it. So what the 222A10 is requiring that you get an SCDOT, either an approval or a conditional approval. Typically, that conditional approval is gonna be good for about for a year. Something stating from the state that they've been notified.
Okay, so let's,
Notified and approved, or notified?
Notified that that access is gonna be needed at some point.
so
I have a
now
follow-up
comes my
statement to that.
question.
Go ahead.
So you got a piece of property and you got a state road running into it that ends. And this owner owns the piece of property all around it. Now he wants to split his property into 3 pieces. Is an encroachment permit required for any of those 3 pieces of property? Because they're already connected to that state road. They're already fronted on it.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, and I would need to pull, the state encroachment policy is very similar to the county's. I think the county took a lot of language down and slimmed it down a little bit. So you'll find the county's encroachment policy in ordinance form in section 26-7. I'm sure we'll get to that when we get to those reworks. But the notion is the same for both the state and the county. So if it's on a county road, they've got access, they've got a driveway, they've got whatever else, but they want to do, whether temporary or permanent, something like a driveway cut, a login or a construction cut, roadway intersection, any other form of connection, they must be improved in writing by the county through the encroachment policy. The purpose for that is simply that we don't operate in vacuum, so you may have access to your property, you're gonna put another access on there, you're gonna add a mailbox, do something that's gonna affect the public way. So that's why the county wants an encroachment permit, that's why the state obviously wants the same thing. I think the state's a little more strenuous, I think that they require it, without a whole lot of development activity, but I'll pull that
Uh,
statute. and-
So to answer my question, I think what I'm hearing is every new piece of subdivided property on that state road requires an encroachment permit, because if they want to cut a driveway and a mailbox to their piece of property, that's why it's required. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
They're changing the shoulder.
And here's why it's wrong, I think, is, it seems like I remember going through this with Adam Chapman when he was here, is that somebody was building along a state road, and they would have a house up front, they would have a driveway going to a house in the back, another driveway going to a house in the back, a house up front, and then two more driveways going to the back, and it put driveways so close that it was causing a danger of, down this 50-mile-an-hour road, that was an uncontrolled situation. And they weren't giving permits to some of those property owners who had just built a house, giving them access to the road. But here's the deal, is it says, the county is saying that they shall submit to the DOT. My daughter had gone through a deal, now it was North Carolina, but she split off a piece of property that accessed the state road, and the State Department said, well, we're not gonna give a permit. So she simply gave an easement, a right-of-way across her property to use her same drive, which was already there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so as along those lines, that was the genesis of this. So it's conditional approval, it's not DOT saying yes, no, or whatever, but it's giving a heads up for the planning department. They've started with this customer, and they're not gonna say just, yes, it looks good from the county end, go rolling on down the road. They will know in the process whether the state has an issue, like the example you gave, so they could address that on the forefront, as opposed to going through the planning, get all your plat approved and everything, and then you go to the DOT and you gotta rework everything. So that was the purpose for doing that with the DOT, getting the kind of pre-clearance or conditional.
What if they didn't want to go the DOT route? What if they were already given access to the current driveway that was, already had permitted access?
I think that would fall within the statute where it says, parcels designed to have access to the state road.
But in other words, it may be designed to have access, but they simply said, hey, let's take the easy way out, there's already a good driveway there. Or there's a bridge, a culvert, that it's cheaper to try to get the easement across there than it is to build a new culvert bridge.
I think perhaps we could change the word designed if that's a impediment to the flow of the statute.
Does
it could
design
just
mean
be-
fronted? Is that it?
The
That it's
purpose is for
fronted?
properties that are gonna access state roads.
So this is saying that the word design here, like Mr. Nick said, is, that word is saying that we are trying to do this and that's our only option?
Right? It's saying we are trying to do this, and because we were trying to do this, hey, county planning department, we're trying to do this, now you know, so you're gonna have to, at some point, get DOT to sign off on it. Let's get DOT to get a conditional approval, give their thoughts in the process, so the citizens receive a benefit of that DOT, position before they go too far down the road.
Designed to access the state road shall submit.
So, but I think,
And the word designed, maybe that's where I keep boggling up. If I've split up property all the way down that state road, you may interpret it as I've designed for that to access that way, but in fact, I'm gonna let everybody use the alleyway in the back.
I think once you go to the DOT and say, I'm not encroaching on your road, but the planning department's saying I am, the DOT is gonna say, we don't have any dog in this fight, so. they're not
Will the
gonna-
DOT respond then?
I think they would respond, and certainly they've been very responsive, and we get them to respond, but I don't think, if they're not actually seeking an encroachment on a state road, DOT is not gonna give it.
Properties designed to access the state road shall submit to and receive approval by the DOT.
I think you could probably change that to, that the intention is to access, some language like that. I think design.
With intention to access?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that we don't do landlocked property. I mean, if there were easements or rights of way, then that should suffice for planning as well, I would think.
It does.
Yeah, this isn't so much sufficing for planning, this is trying to do, the purpose of this was to give the citizens the benefit of the DOT approval or conditional approval before they went too far down the road, again.
Can we make a go ahead.
So I'm just trying to drill down to understand. Encroachment is the encroachment is the intent to normally access, ingress and egress, normally ingress and egress to the state road, right? That's what
I think that's
encroaching is, it's the normal
generally-
ingress and egress.
Generally,
on the
and
property.
it may take different forms, temporary, permanent, but ultimately, I think as what Mr. Haney says, you're altering the shoulder, you're altering the maintenance area, and ultimately, it could be altering the traveling surface. So, that's the purpose of it for the county and the state, among other things, I'm sure, but that's the primary.
From a legal standpoint, do you see, and I don't know that I'm even on the same, talking about the same topic as Mr. Haney, but I am confused with the word design. That statement feels as though my ability to move forward is contingent on me going and applying to a DOT permit, which I don't plan to use, and then showing them, once the DOT in 90 or 120 days finally responds to me, now I can move forward.
So if they came to you and said, well, this is not designed for state access, here's our access on county road or whatever, what would you do?
If they have a different way to access it, and it fit all the other requirements of, okay, so it's a county road, right? Or let's say, I don't know if that's a good, let's say private.
Yeah,
because
if they're
then
just saying,
it's-
hey, we're not accessing the state
Right.
road, this isn't, you may say it's designed, it looks like it may, but that's not the intent, it's not designed to access the state road, we're doing a county road, or whatever. Are you gonna look for me to go through the process just for fun?
No, if they have other means of access and it fits the rest of the ordinance where it applies,
So designed then doesn't automatically mean if it fronts the road, that's not necessarily design.
right, and that's what I'm saying, I think there's somewhere else in the ordinance, I don't know if it applies to this specifically, but I know I've read it, I just don't know where specifically, where it says if there is another access point, whether it's county or private, and it fits everything else, then they can use that, they don't have to go get that SCDOT encroachment.
So I think
Does that make
we've
sense?
gone, we circled around the barn to get the front door of the house. So originally, we were talking about 32-220B. And the question I had, containing no new roads. And then you came up and said, well, what if it requires an encroachment permit? Well, that would technically be a new road.
Could be temporary,
Well, it's a new driveway,
could be temporary.
could be temporary, but either way, it's a new road. So would it be, better for us to reword this, contains no new encroachment, permits or no, new easements?
Would it be too vague to state, the planning director shall approve a minor or family subdivision meeting the requirements of this chapter, comma, which contains no new roads after reviewing the final plans is meeting the requirements of this chapter? That's what I was thinking that may be a placeholder at this point, so we know
Right.
what the requirements of the chapter are when we get to the end of the thing, and then we can say, all right, we can
Yeah,
fill it in if it's
plug that
specific.
in. So we can, so I make a motion, we postpone this until we've gone through.
Do we want to postpone it, or do we want to ask Mr. Root to work out the proper wording for it?
Well, he always enjoys doing. So, okay, I make a
State your
motion
motion.
for Mr. Root to, come up with the correct verbiage that'll fit into this, chapter 32 and 26, once we have completed those items.
I'll second that. I may have made it more complicated by making that comment, if you'd rather do something different.
That's fine.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion on Mr. Root trying to finalize the wording based on everything else that we're doing? All
I
those,
think what we said was it's placekeeping wording at this point until we determine otherwise.
okay.
I have good placekeeping language, if we can use it at the end, and
Sounds good.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
Sorry about that, Mr. Haney.
Shall we continue?
Yes, please.
Shall we dive into the big one, yard?
Yeah, that one is all over the place, it seems like.
So really, dealing with 32, is there a way to take yard out of 32? Is it applicable in 32?
So does everybody have the copy of all of the things that staff provided as far as where the word yard was shown?
Should be on the back.
It's at the very, very back.
It's in the very, very back?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Reed had a question.
Yes, sir.
I did. Ultimately, I guess it's where we're going. We're gonna go to 32 and then 26, and then you're gonna go to 38? Is that the overall?
So we had started in 26 with the process, then we realized under definitions in 32 that there were a lot of conflicting things. So we worked on 32, trying to straighten that out. Some of the things in 32 are gonna need to go back into 26 as definitions because they still need to be there. And then ultimately, we'll finish this up with 38. Yes, sir.
I was just curious, so we harmonized the best we could when we did the flag lots and setbacks and all of that, tried to harmonize what we had, the terminology. Yard, I had an issue with them, it was kind of clanky, but it's littered throughout 38. So we're not seeing it in 32 or 26 as much. 38, minimum yard requirements are for every zoning district. And so it's one of those carryovers. It is a term of art in land use and zoning, which means it's the area of the setback. So instead of, you can say setback area, or you can say yard. I mean, that is commonly used. We commonly use it as, like you had said, my backyard, front yard, where my dog is, whatever, but they think of a yard or zoning or planning yard in a professional context. I mean, that area that's reserved for the setback.
And so there are parts of the definitions, as you were reading those in setbacks, yard was used, and clearly in 38, it has the word yard, minimum yard requirements over the line of setbacks. Almost as a redundancy of the word use. But when you go to the graph doesn't meet what, at least in my opinion, doesn't meet what you just said, because the yard comes over some of the buildable area. If you look at 38.9.3.1 under setbacks, you've got rear yard setback, part of it's in the buildable area, part of it's in the setback area. Then you go to front yard setback, and part of it is in the buildable area, and part of it is in the non-buildable area. But then you go to the definition of yard, and it says you can't build anything in that buildable area.
I think this is a bad graph, or not a great graph, but I think if you look at the dimensional criteria, and maybe I'm just doing my high school drafting class poorly, but I think the rear yard setback is that depth, so it's not encroaching into the buildable area that's in the middle of it, and that may be defined by the building line required front yard. I can piece it together and kind of make it work, but I agree with you completely, it's not in great harmony with setback and yard.
It seems like in so many
I think we
areas,
talked
all
about
we're doing
replacing
is,
this
we're defining setbacks over here. Setbacks an area off of the front side and rear of the property line. You can't build in it. Then we have which then defines the buildable area, is everything inside the setback. And then we have yard, some of which overlaps the setback and some of which stays within the setback. But when you go to the definition, it's just the same as the setback.
Right.
So could we not just eliminate it altogether?
Well, that's what I was thinking, that's why I went to 38. So I think eliminating the graph is great, but I believe when we get to the end of the thing, and I was thinking about this yesterday doing this, I didn't want to volunteer to do it, but I volunteered to, when we get to 38 chapter, we just need to harmonize throughout. We've got building line, building setback line, setback, yard, and we just need to resolve on one term. So it's really speaking to the same, setback area, as best we can. I mean, that, like I said, problem with 32, 38, 26, Walt's in here my first year, a decade ago, and said, we need a UDO, we need to redo this whole thing. We started marshaling some stuff up there, and there's not a lot of appetite for changes in 32 and 38. But you also realize it's kind of a pull a string, and it just keeps on going, or push down on the waterbed here, and it's gonna pop up over there in 2 years. But as far as harmonizing best we can, the setback definitions, it might be good to wait to the end, and then we're gonna capture them all.
Well, the crazy part is we even added a word in here that was not defined anywhere else, and that was called yard setback. So we have setbacks, we have yard, and we have yard setback. Yes, sir.
So looking at this, it looks like we could just get rid of the word yard and say front setback, rear setback. Anywhere we use yard, like minimum yard requirements, we could say minimum setback requirements. Front setback, side setback, rear setback.
I agree with you,
And
David.
then non-buildable area would be a term, or setback area, which is the area outside the buildable area.
We needed to come.
And then just get rid of yard.
Right, if we needed to capture two dimensions more than like, here's your setback line, setback area would work, yeah, as opposed to yard.
Could we ask Mr. Root then, based on the idea of removing the word yard and replacing it with setback, to go through our ordinance and see if that can work?
Well, in some places
Well,
it needs to be
Some places
setback
says
area.
yard setback, just get rid of the yard.
Well, in some places you can get rid of yard, some places you can replace yard with setback area.
Let's look at chapter 32.
Depends.
Go to your very back pages, page 1 of 1. So that's the definition of yard. If we remove that out of this document and then flip the next page over,
Where are we at, please?
The very last page on your,
oh, I'm sorry, all of them's page 1 of 1.
Sorry.
your very last page has a definition of yard on the
Appendix
inside.
A,
Thank you, sir.
Appendix A.
Yes. So it's under the definitions. If we take that out, then flip your page over under section 32, 214, and remove the word yard there, then you're talking about minimum setbacks, rear setbacks, and encroaching into the setback.
Area.
So that takes care of yard being used in chapter 32 without affecting the other ordinances that use yard.
38 is the more intricate one that you really have to watch how you replace the word yard with.
So in 38, does it have the definition yard, which is called
Yeah,
out?
It actually does. Actually, that's the one I was looking at, the 38-12.2 definition of yard.
So do we see a problem with removing yard out of 32?
I don't see a problem with removing it, and in looking at all the stuff that staff came up with, it seems like it can get changed out very easily. But I'd like it to be done by Mr. Root to just make sure.
Necessarily align with the definition.
Is there any reason not to remove it from 38 too? Or you
I would say remove it from 32 and from 38,
I would,
and/or replace it depending on its intent.
I think it's applicable in some zoning applications.
Right.
And that's what we gotta be careful of. We have not got into 38. What I'm saying is, in 32, I think it can be removed because it's not used throughout the document. It's only used in a very defined area.
See, I think even in 38, most of it, it's got minimum yard, and then directly under it, it defines the amount of the setback.
I agree, but I think we should just focus on 32 and then deal with 38 when we come to it.
But these working drafts too, they're good. And I appreciate the way y'all have called out stuff. It makes it a lot easier. We can note that in there. I can get rid of the yards in there. We can note attention given to 38 use of the term yard. And
So
we all
I'm
get
make a
rid of it.
motion that Mr. Root notes it in this, or working draft, for it to be removed, so we'll be able to read through it and ensure it flows correctly.
Okay. And is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Mr. Powell, second
Piling
that.
on Mr. Root.
Discussion? So let's take, for example, section 32, 212 definitions. Yard means a space that lies between blah, blah, blah. Front yard, rear yard, side yard. Yard, several places.
It just needs to go away.
I think you would, in the right places, you would replace that with setback area and setback.
You're correct, David. And that's what I was talking about, was removing that definition out and then just go to the next page over,
Do
which
we
is,
not use setback, well, the only place we use yard is in 32, 214 and 32, is that correct?
so, yes, and if we take yard out of 214,
Yeah, you don't need,
you don't need the definition of yard into,
well, I mean, it does talk about setbacks, so now do you need a definition of setbacks?
It's already defined.
setbacks is already defined
Okay.
over in chapter 38.
Well, yeah, but I thought we said anytime we use anytime we use a term in a chapter, we're gonna define it in that chapter.
Yeah, it's the same one in 32, Tab. I think they're exactly the
It's in
same.
32 also, okay.
On
I
page
just didn't, I
seven.
was gonna say, I didn't include it, cause it was like 18 and
When we talked about this definition, see, this is one of the things y'all particularly asked me about.
I'm assuming it aligns
I don't know
with
if you want to
38.
bring that up now or not.
I don't guess we need to define setback here, cause we're not using it in 32, so, yeah, I'm good, I'm with you.
Any other discussion on the motion? All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor of removing that section in gray and replacing as necessary signify by saying aye.
unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Haney. Keep going. You're doing a great
All
job.
right, so let's go to section 32, 221. No, I'm sorry, 222. And it would be section 3H. And was looking for clarity on public or community use. I think there was a concern about, and the reason I plugged community in there was because in a private subdivision, that area would be for the community, but not for the public.
I'm just making sure I'm looking at the right one. So you're at, yes, I got you now. So you all asked for kind of common definitions of community and public in this context and the land use zone use. I think you hit on it exactly what you said. So community typically defined as a group of people residing in a specific geographic area, share common interests, rights, responsibilities, or goals. They may be governed by local regulations and agreements. They share common boundaries, interest goals, legal recognition, maybe like HOA or whatever. They may have community bylaws, et cetera. So they establish community, common, colloquial, common sense definition. I think that works here. And so zoning laws, like zoning districts could be communities, so their zoning laws are meant to, all right, this particular area, community, likes this set of values or these set of restrictions or whatever. And then when you get to public, and it's not a pure legal definition, it's the aggregate, it's the citizens in the jurisdiction. And as an adjective, I think is what we're mainly using here. It's something that's accessible to everyone, owned or operated by the government, and it serves the general welfare or common interest people. So that's a public road, public building. Whereas it may not,
So if we added the word community there, we've used it appropriately then in that sentence. If we've added the word community, we've defined it, so if a neighborhood has a tennis court, it's a community tennis court as opposed to a public use tennis court.
right, and it's a very big distinction, once people start showing up to play tennis.
Yes, sir.
Just for clarity, are we talking about leaving public in there? Public community?
Yes,
Leaving public and adding the word or community,
it's public
as in
or.
highlighted in yellow there,
Yeah.
because it may not necessarily all be for public use.
Yeah. That highlight makes it.
Yours is blue, you can't read this.
It's or community.
See, it's blue and red, you can't.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
It's hard to read this stuff.
I think I'm looking at the same one. Are you on 3H? It
Page
shows
8.
page 16 on the bottom.
No, 3H is,
He's probably further, you're probably closer to the front, you'll wanna go closer to the back.
There's a section in the back.
Page
that I'm
18
trying
to
make
23.
Easier for people with, like myself, with color vision issues. So just,
You're in
This is-
section 322,
Yes,
32,222, right?
yes,
I looked like that.
7th page from the back.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow.
A lot better there.
See,
It looks
now,
great
now,
on the
now,
screen.
see,
It's-
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
I didn't understand it, sorry.
That's good.
So we were asking Mr. Root in the last meeting to make sure that community was the right usage of the word. We now want to vote to apply
Yes.
that into that sentence.
So I make a motion to accept that change.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hallelujah.
Let's see.
Did you want to do the same thing in 11? 223.
11.
223.
Bravo 11.
Bravo 11. The public or community was added in there as well.
Yes, you are correct.
Does everybody see that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I make a motion that we add or community spaces to that change as well.
School sites.
Anybody second that? Mr. Nick seconded it. Everybody knows where we are and see. Is there any question there? All those in favor of adding or community, signify by saying aye.
Sure.
Unanimous?
Staff did get that we're talking about 11, Bravo 11.
I make a motion that Mr. Reed goes through the certificate of maintenance for private roads when that is throughout this document, and it's also throughout 26.
Where are we talking, or are you adding something new?
Well, it's part of the discussion we had previously about getting Mr. Reed go through there and make sure it's clear on if you're building it for a private road, it's noted as such, and the only way it can be accepted as a public road is to be verified through non-district testing and signed off on as insurance to compliance by a qualified
We'll
engineer
mention 19 and 20.
before the county could adopt that.
Thank you.
Mr. Root, we were having the conversation last time, and I personally live on a private road, so I know that my survey says it. All the surveys on a private road say this road shall not be taken over by the county, et cetera, and whatnot. And we were having the conversation that there are neighborhoods being built where they're being built and with the expectation of turning them over to the public. But they have to go through that process and then of building it, and then the council votes on it of whether they'll do it or not. And they then have established the amount of HOA dues and everything else based on the anticipation of it being public. And all of a sudden, if the council was to say, oh, we're not taking over that road as a public road, now they've got to go back and change everything that they have established. So we were talking about that if there's the intention of building it to be turned over to the public, that it needs to be built to the public standards. It needs to be made aware to planning commission up front so that they can make the appropriate inspections through the process as though it is, even though it's initially has to be this private road expectation. And so,
And I think you pointed out that the thing that caused me the heartburn on that was that folks who were developers, and I guess it's been a while since we've had this in full-fledged, but developers who were wanting to build it to county roads, obviously they're not accepted yet, so they're being required to sign off on a plat that said, hey, these are not being built to county standards, we're never gonna, this is the same nomenclature as in the ordinance, which is not right. So that came to me, and we did one time recently, and we landed on alternative language, which I'd love to codify. I'm not saying I couldn't do this language, it worked and we did it. but instead have both. So for the folks who are not going to make these county roads, because that has been an issue, I think Mr. Randy talked about it before, we'd had issues with developers. We're gonna build these roads, we're not gonna make them county roads, it's gonna be cheaper. That folks can take it in the development, they can take care of it themselves, they leave, and the people are in the development, like, we can't take care of these roads. So they try to go to the county, and they're not built to county standards. So that notice on the plat gives everyone notification of that standard. But what we used for one that was being built to county standards was this: the road rights-of-way shown on this plat are private as of the date of this plat. The road rights-of-way have, however, been constructed pursuant to a plan to request future acceptance of the road rights-of-way into the Oconee County Public Road System, consistent with Chapter 26 of the Oconee County Code of Ordinances. Until the rights-of-way are accepted by Oconee County into the public road system, if ever, maintenance of the road rights-of-way shall be the responsibility of blank the developer, assuming a future acceptance, if any, of the road rights-of-way into the Oconee County Public Road System shall be evidenced by a separate document. So that leaves, they're not having to sign off on this and say, hey, we're not building these for county standards, which was kind of the practice before, which is a false, make a false statement. The folks who had a big objection like this language. It works for me.
Does it, and you're the attorney, what we're trying to do is in this process over the years, eliminate ambiguity and eliminate whoever is sitting in that desk, that they interpret something as one way and somebody else interprets something as another, and developments that are being built under one planning director, and then all of a sudden there's another planning director or two planning directors later. We want to make sure that we're working off language that the planning director knows going in when he reads the document the expectation. One, so that a developer doesn't change their, oh, well, we told this other guy such and such. Well, you didn't really write it that way. So that everybody's on point of knowing, no matter who's in the seats on either side, everybody knows what the end game is.
I think this language would do, I'm gonna email it to Ed and Elise so they can send it to you, because I know it's a long paragraph. But I think if you have alternative plat, addenda or notations on them, one saying, hey, we're not building it to county standards, that covers that first issue when they're not building it, but tries to turn it over later if they're on notice. And then this one gives them the, hey, we are building in county standards, you're notified of this, I'm not having to sign a false statement, and, you know, obviously we can't accept them until they're done, we know that they've been built to standards, but.
So you
gives them
have
notice.
both called out in that paragraph.
No, so the other, I just added this one to my own document, but I would say add this into the ordinance, so you have
Okay.
alternative provisions depending on what they want to do.
And so they do one or the other. And I know the surveyor is the one who's actually initiating that on the plat. So the developer then tells the surveyor, this is the language you're gonna use.
Right, yeah, we're building these for county acceptance. I got Kyle Reed out there, he's hounding me all the time, make sure the plat says we're building these to county.
And then once it says that, then planning would know that they need to make sure all the inspections are lined up, and Kyle would know that they need to make sure all the inspections are being lined up.
And the public would know that, you know, that, hey, ostensibly, hopefully, that these are being built for acceptance, no problem for that purpose.
I'll make a motion that we have Mr. Root submit that into the documents. So on the final reading, we'll have that verbiage.
Second.
And this is in chapter 32 and chapter 26.
With the clear language so that everybody knows the process. All the way down to, you know, Farmer Joe who's dividing 12 lots out there, that he can read it and understand it, and doing one of two things.
I'm trying to talk about a little more, some of less legalese. It's not working.
Well, we just go through so many names and faces that you get to the point of, well, they said, and this was okay, and we're trying to eliminate that.
It's a good goal, and we'll do our very best.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of Mr. Root adding that into the documents where they need to be, language signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
All right. Ed, if I'm correct, everything highlighted in yellow, we did not vote on?
That is, per my review of the minutes,
Okay.
time's over.
So let's finish cleaning up the document. So section 32, 221,
Thirty-two, two-two-one.
Bravo 2, we removed, and may require a detailed sketch plan. And the reason why is it doesn't clearly state when you would need a detailed sketch plan for a minor subdivision. Whereas a detailed sketch plan is required for anything outside of a minor subdivision.
Is there any conflict that you all see in that change?
Keeping in mind that a sketch plan is a kind of a qualified process. Now, if somebody comes in and they've drawn something out and they're like, this is my sketch plan, that doesn't mean that they're suddenly in the sketch plan process. We were talking about, the back of the napkin for how I divide the land for my kids versus a developer who says, here's a sketch plan, I wanna see how these 40 lots, work with what y'all are trying to do before I really invest in engineering.
Right. That, the 40 lots would fall into the
Exactly.
detailed sketch plan
So
or anything 10 and below.
So removing this note does not,
It looks like
cause me any heartburn.
we reduced that down to 10, is that right? Under B, just the basic sketch plan is for 10 dwelling units?
Correct.
Or less.
So you would expect that for anything above that would have something more formalized? Okay.
So let me make sure I'm clear on this. Less than 10 is a sketch plan. Between 10 and 20 is a basic sketch plan.
A detailed sketch plan. A basic sketch plan.
Well, this is basic sketch plan, optional requirements for developments less than 20 units. So it's greater than 10,
I think you need to move to the back and look at this one.
So if
20 or more is a detailed sketch plan, but what about 10 to 20? Between 10 and 20?
where do you see 20 or more?
That's 11.
11 or
Or is this
more.
11 or more?
Oh, okay, I'm looking at the wrong,
Yeah, you need to go back where we were looking before, 220.
all right, maybe that's why I'm confused, is I'm looking at the wrong.
So the detailed sketch plan requirements are called out
Basic,
below
and then you got a detailed for 11 or more.
for 11 or more.
Yeah.
And it's actually 10 or more if you look at Bravo 12C. And why does that say 12C as opposed to 123?
Okay, I got it.
Well, basic is 10 or less, right?
Basic 10 or less.
Oh, that's a basic sketch plan and a detailed sketch plan. The C just needs to be moved over. There's a 1 and 2 under basic sketch plan, and then C needs to be moved over.
Well, C starting the detailed sketch plan.
Detailed sketch plan. And
Process.
and that, I'm reading that detailed sketch plan, mine says 10 or more,
He's on the wrong
as opposed to
page.
11 or more.
It's 11 or more.
You need to go to the back section,
So there's two
where we were
markups.
before,
There's two markups. One of them's wrong.
where we had
one
the
of them's
order.
Gotcha. I flipped too far up earlier, didn't I?
All right.
That one that you asked me to do is in the back.
I think Ed's been having fun with us.
All right.
Mark,
Okay.
You'll find this one much clearer.
Yes, we had a motion and a second, is that correct?
We don't have a second as far as I know.
Second,
Wait a minute.
And Mr.
Wait a
Root,
second.
Okay.
Okay.
The way I read this, and I think it's not too dissimilar than how it's been practiced, but basic sketch plan, this is optional for 10 or less. So if you're 10 or less, you don't want to do a sketch plan, you don't have to. It only is asking for a basic sketch plan requirements are to show the approximate layout of the proposed subdivision and its relationship to surrounding areas. So it's not much, and it's optional for 10 or less, and then I think if you have 11 or more, the way I read this, then you have to do it, and it requires the same thing. How does the subdivision relate to the surrounding area, and then all these other things. The sketch plan is a good thing. I know it maybe seem like another, and it can be, I guess, onerous path to go through, but the purpose of it is, before you get into spending the money on preliminary plans and more detailed plans, let's see how this lines up, and like I think Ed was pointing out, it's kind of an organic work-through process.
Yeah, the concern was dealing with the basic sketch plan, and it was vague when it says, and we may require a detailed sketch plan.
Yeah, I got you.
And that's on Bravo 2, the very end of it.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir?
On 221 Charlie 2, it says all sketch plan submittals shall include the following in sketch or narrative form. So if somebody decides to submit a basic sketch
No,
plan?
that's under the detailed ones,
I understand.
but the,
Well, it says all.
yeah, but I think they were all detailed.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
For 11 or more.
Thank you. Good question.
Is that how you all are interpreting it?
No, but I could see where in Charlie 1, it says the sketch plan, and Charlie 2, it could also say the sketch plan.
Okay. That was
That's
my
a-
question.
So do you want to make a motion to change that from all sketch plans to the sketch plan?
As long as that is how it would apply. We all in agreement then? That it only applies to detailed sketch plans?
Correct.
Okay, yes.
Under that,
Suppose we change-
sketch plan shall, under number 1, it should also say the sketch plan submittal shall include the following narrative.
Under all, that would include the
Everything.
optional.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so we're changing the word, you're making a motion to change the word all in C, Charlie 2.
Mr.
to
Chairman,
D.
I agree with the motion change, but I think we've got a motion on the
Motion
floor.
on the table.
Exactly, it's the one in.
Do we need to clarify this motion before the other one?
You the chairman.
I forget what that's called, but I think that we should change this all to thee before we make before we do the full. So you have so you have a motion on that, I'll second that. If there's any, is there any discussion on changing all to thee, so it matches the first sentence?
I think it's a very good change.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
Now let's go to the motion that is the greater motion on the table. Would somebody repeat that motion?
That motion is to remove and may require a detailed sketch plan to be submitted. That's under Bravo 2,
Under basic.
under basic sketch plan.
And we had a second on that by Mr. Nix. All those in favor of that highlighted in yellow removed, signify by saying aye. Next, so can we take a 5-minute break?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to take a 5-minute break.
Second.
Second, all those in favor say
Aye.
aye. Coming back at, it is 7:03, so let's say 7:10. Keep this back off.
In section 332, 222, 3 Bravo.
I make a motion that we remove the word public.
I will second that. Is there any discussion on that? All those in favor of removing the word public by crosswalk, signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
This is a cleanup. It's Charlie 6.
Insure and insure.
Yes,
What about 3H? You gonna do 3H?
we already
I think
done
we already
3H.
finished. We had
Oh, I'm
previous-
sorry.
Yeah, discussion.
Yep, we didn't do that one.
Motion that we, correct the spelling from insure, to e-insure.
Yeah, I'll second that. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
All right, now we're going towards the front.
Uh-oh.
So section 32, 217. At the bottom, that's page 1121.
Okay.
Delta 3, adding in not desired by the subdivider when dealing with public sanitary sewer system or sewage system.
I second the motion to add that phrase, not desired by the subdivider.
I
You
make
made
the motion.
right?
Okay.
Yep.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
So just a question on that. What did it say before?
That they had to, hold on, let's go to it. So that's 317.
I think it said where public sanitary sewer systems are provided, well, I can't remember. Seems like you had to hook up to it if it was provided, right? That was what
Correct.
it said before.
It says we're on Delta 3.
It said reasonably accessible or available.
Right.
And reasonably was our concern. Who defines reasonably? Any additional discussion? All those in favor of that change signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Ed, these reserves that are highlighted,
Yes, sir.
what are they for?
We took sections out,
Okay,
and the question is, a couple of Scrivener questions that I have are, do we simply do those as reserved, so that we don't change the rest of the numbering? Or do we remove them and correct the numbering?
Are there any document link numbers, steps after?
Great
Reserves.
question.
Because if there's not, you can just renumber them.
And I'm not aware as to whether they are or they aren't.
I wouldn't think there would be.
I wouldn't think there would be.
we'd hate to assume, so let's postpone that until staff, I make a motion to postpone it until staff has reviewed and ensured there's no document links.
I will say this, though, one thing nice about leaving the slots reserved is you can go back and look at previous revision, it's easier to see what was deleted. But other than that, if there's no links, there's no value. It just takes up space.
You've made a motion that staff is going to make sure that the link of B5 has not been designated as,
Well, that would be B3, B4. It'd shift all the numbers throughout the document.
right, but so state your motion again then.
So my motion is for staff to go through and make sure by shifting the numbers that it's not going to create a document link issue where it's actually pointing them to the wrong portion of the ordinance.
Okay. I'll second that. All those in favor of asking staff to do that, signify by saying aye.
Oh, just a discussion, is that something staff can do reasonably?
We certainly can do it.
Alright.
There's that word reasonably again.
Well, should we just leave it in there as reserved like he's got it?
No harm.
Does it hurt to leave it in there? Nobody can plug anything in without this group coming in front and saying, we're gonna plug something into there.
That's correct.
Mr. Root, what's your take?
I think it's good to have them in there. One, it does give a history, track record of what's happened, but two, usually there's a reason for the reserved. Maybe, minor subdivisions, hey, we're gonna do something with this in the future, we're gonna reserve it, so you have a placeholder there for it, and you come revisit it. I've never seen a reserve section cause a problem, except for when you're like, I wish they would have populated that by now, whatever they're gonna do with it, but other than that, I would.
All right, well, let me withdraw my motion and make a motion that we accept all the highlighted reserves in document 32
As written,
as written.
I will second that motion. Any discussion on that?
Nope.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Root, this is another one for you, section 32, 216. And the concern was being as DHEC, or what's their new?
DES?
Yes. This is in their wheelhouse. Why aren't we calling it out here?
Well, I don't know what the purpose was in '08. I know that DES's scope of review is not everything. So it has to be a acre or more for constructing land disturbance. So then the NPDES permit comes into place. But things that are less than an acre are generally excluded from DES oversight permitting and all of that. There are situations where they've got, I forget what it's called, but you have a common plan of development. So DES knows that you're gonna develop 6 acres, but you're only doing 3/4 of an acre. Now, you can't circumvent their review by doing 6 different 3/4 of an acre to get that. But otherwise, it's the acre above. So these are kind of supplementary, but when I look at them with that eye again, I don't think they're good. I talked to the DES folks on how they're working with different jurisdictions, and a lot of them have these kind of fill-ins where local jurisdictions are doing something supplementary to, and that's not bad. They can make them more stringent or strict. But I don't know without a county engineer, steady on state that, that we're really qualified, that Oconee County is really qualified to do what's in here. I like the idea, and DES said they would do this, of us coming up with some alternative, so we still are having a role in the process, even if it's just supervising, ensuring that, or something, ensuring that it's there. And they would come talk to us about it, they would bless it, they would take the draft, whatever. They would look at it for, this is a local jurisdiction that is not required to have it. That's something important to remember too. So you have certain size areas that are required to have a stormwater permit plan. We're not. Seneca's getting kind of close, but they didn't reach the population threshold last time. But you'll see them around the state. They're required to have them, we're not. So what we have is just, in addition to supplementary to, and I hope, I'm sure in 2008 that they are thinking DHEC, just like they are now, is overburdened and they may not catch everything, so we're gonna give the county some teeth to, hey, do this or that. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I don't know that I've had an issue come up with stormwater in the last decade here. I know that we had some silt fence issues in the overlay that we addressed, but I don't remember this being a common issue.
So
Nonetheless, my thinking was, let me grab some good versions of local ones that are a little bit streamlined down, so it just covers what we have, and then bring that here, say this is good, y'all like it or don't, and then ship it to DES and get their input on it.
When I read it, the part that I was reading is that the obligation is to give something to the county, and that the county will determine if there's enough information provided. When in reality, it's DES that does it anyway, with the exception of that small acreage.
Yeah, it is DES who does it anyways, but they do, like I said, if the local jurisdiction has more stringent standards, it could come into play now. To my knowledge, and this is why we don't like practice deviating from what's written, but it happens a lot with 32 and 38 because these have morphed over a long period of time. It's not been implemented in the sense of, hey, thou shalt, or you're not gonna get your building permit or your zoning permit. It's been that, hey, in James's case, he's got a lot of experience with this. He's a certified stormwater or floodplain manager. And he did a lot of infrastructure work, so he could give ideas to the developer, say, hey, DES is saying this, maybe take this to him, act, whatever. That's what I understood, or he made recommendations, DES, something like that. It was kind of a helping position, but that's not the way it's written, and it's not, I don't think, a good necessarily be in. So my notion again would be to something that's more streamlined. There's a few good local government stormwater provisions. Bring those to you all and see what you think about them, and then we ship them to DES to see what they think. I've got a contact there now. She turned around stuff very quickly to me. They thought.
So I have a few questions, and a concern. So the silk fence issue, would that not also be captured under the, building codes?
I know that it comes in, I don't remember where the IRC or IBC, the silk fencing comes in. I know that whatever was in place, and I'm sure this is Lake Overlay, I'm not saying they get a different standard of review than anyone else, but I know that there was several eyes on it, that what was in place was not sufficient, and we had to add some meat to, and this is 8 years ago, 7 years ago, silk fencing to keep the runoff, on people's land, because they were just, and this goes back to the 1 acre disturbing requirement, because they weren't doing that. It was a single family residence, less than an acre, and they were having stormwater migrate soil and toxins or whatever else could be in there into neighbors and into the water.
Right, but there's a remedy to that if you're allowing your stormwater to go over the property lines. Am I correct?
But in private nuisance action, yeah.
Right.
Certainly could.
Okay. My concern is, with this verbiage that we have in here, it does not cover the exemption of the agricultural properties, and this is about all subdividing of land. And, this is a good example of why, if it's really in the wheelhouse of DES, it's gonna take me a while to get that, then, and we do not have a county engineer, we do not have the resources, then are we making ourselves no longer a service to the people, but instead of a hindrance because we don't fully understand this portion of code?
Yeah, I think it may be implemented again from planning director or whomever to the next one differently. Yeah, I think so. I think it's working and it has worked, but it's not a guarantee that it'll work in the future. So I do think boiling it down to similar jurisdictions who are not trying to be as robust as this one was. And this is our little area, this is 1 acre or less, we may do this, and we may, whatever, saddle up. I don't know what the language would be, but I want to get the most succinct.
Yes, Mr. Nix.
So I'll make a motion that, we ask Mr. Root to benchmark other, counties, verbiage, on drainage and stormwater, and bring it back to the planning commission as a proposal to replace items A, B, and D.
I'll second that.
Under discussion, Mr. Root, one of the big accomplishments, as you know, that we're trying to do is to make it consistent between planning directors. And so that it's also easily understood, as easy as it can be. So as you're looking at those counties and bringing them back, please don't send us something that's more difficult than where we are now, so.
Not be my goal, I promise. Something that's much more clear, narrow, and less discretion.
All those in favor of that motion signify, was there more discussion that you had? I'm sorry. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
Mr. Root, the next one's yours also. So it's thirty-two, 211, no, I'm sorry, 32, 212. It's the definition of street. It's on page 5 of 21. The issue we ran into was street was used, and it referenced only the public roads. But in this document, we're dealing with private roads also. And it did not fit throughout the ordinance.
I think of street, not as a planning director, as any kind of street, any road. It is a term of art in planning and zoning that street means a public road, thoroughfare, and includes the left and right margins, so everything that's within it. However, it is used in there, in this document, as private streets, things of that nature, have to be cleared up. So, I know the definition of street, it just said see public road, as I recall, it doesn't say it here, but I think it just said see public road, which isn't necessarily bad in and of itself with the common definition of street, but then once it's used differently throughout the document, it's bad.
Right.
So, either way, we can stick with the definition of street and clean up all the notion of private street, or attack it a different way. I don't have any magic.
Well, if you're saying that it's used, always used as a public road in the documents, then it would make sense to go through and clean up
Get rid of the private.
everywhere it's used in the private road. So I make a motion that,
That Mr. Root
yes,
cleans up the area of streets so that it's applicable only to public roads? Is that
Correct.
your- Yes,
I don't mean to interrupt. You
No,
can
please.
finish The motion, I just wanted to make sure there was some discussion, because public roads moved to 26.
yes.
So there is no public road definition in 32 now.
Yeah, that's just blank, isn't it? On mine, it's just blank. I don't understand what you're,
I think it got pulled out.
The vote was to move it to 26.
Okay, so it's moved to 26, so this really should be
And
reserved.
then street referring to public road refers to nothing in 32, but instead would
falls under several areas, so that really needs to be, the definition of street, if there's a continued definition, needs to be moved to 26. And anywhere where there's private streets mentioned, those become non-applicable as
I think the word street was not used in chapter 32. Didn't we discuss that as well?
I think so, Dave. Mr. Nix.
Which means we don't need the definition of street in chapter 32 at all.
So do you want to revise that motion?
Yeah, I want to revise my motion to move the definition of street over to chapter 26.
And then to clean it up and make it consistent.
Yes.
I'll
Do you all
second that.
did you all get that as a motion?
I'll second that motion.
Is there any confusion or any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
All right, I think that concludes chapter 32, with the exception of a few follow-up items.
Do you want to jump into the 26 changes?
Let's jump, what time is it? 7:30.
We've still got 30 minutes.
Yes. I noticed in our discussion that up here was talking about county council voting to bring in private roads into public roads. But I'm thinking in the ordinance, it reads that that's the administrator.
It is, and it hasn't been though under my watch or under anytime Kyle's been here since 2009, so that's 16 years. The administrator does have that ability to set them in, but we will put everything through council. If you have a lawyer's vote for it, I would revise that for everything to go through council. The administrator is executive, obviously executive branch of council, so Amanda, she, in this instance, is the one to do it, but we've always got backup for her to do it because there was a history when we were supervisor, former government supervisor council, that more roadways may have been handed out than ought to have been, public roadways, or at least that was a concern. So we made it a legislative act through council to authorize the administrator to do it.
So if that's what we're doing, then we should document that.
I think so.
Do you know exactly where that's at in here?
I know.
Well, I had it, but my computer is not charging.
And you know, can you find that?
I'm looking right now.
And there's another one, Mr. Reed, that I'm concerned about. And that's, and we'll get these out of the way first, because these are gonna be something we gotta do research on. And that's the appeals process on roads.
Yes, sir.
And I could be off base here and not truly understanding it. Under the variance process. So roads are standards, correct?
Roadway standards?
It's roadway standards, is correct. It's not zoning ordinances.
That's where it gets tricky, because there's so oftentimes a bleed between some road variance and a zoning variance, pure zoning variance. That's why, I don't know that y'all have ever, or the planning commission has ever passed on a variance, or made any decision on an appeal on a road issue or anything of that nature. Certainly not that I can remember. But as a rule, if they're focused in there, it's a land division, subdivision issue, I would agree, it's generally gonna come to the commission. That's where you're headed.
So the question I have in here, if I can find it, is
26A is variance. 26E, variances.
26.8.
23
Variances
is
from road standards. A variance from road standard shall be consistent with this article shall be approved in writing for the Board of Zoning Appeals. So my question is, going back to the authority given by the state for the Board of Zoning Appeals, and it continues to talk about zoning in that document. And nowhere does it branch outside of that parameter of zoning. So my question is in section 26.8, is this the correct tool for this? And do they have the authority there?
I think they do because it's been given them by a legislative act of the council, and you will not find variance for the planning commission within Title VI, Chapter 29, State Code. Places do it, planning commissions do it, because there has been, we have home rule, and there's been a pretty good legislative delegation from the state to local governments to do that. You'll see both of them pass on it. BZA, I'm sure the reason they set this up with the BZA to do it then was because that's the quasi-judicial body, and that's what they felt comfortable doing, as opposed to y'all have been an advisory, send legislation up kind of body.
I guess where I was going is, should we be granting variances on road standards?
If you're asking me, no, but would never have a vote, and because I'm just like, things too clear. We don't grant them on the tail end, so I think that's good. So variances, hey, this, in the standard scheme of variances, I've got a particular development that's not gonna fit like the other ones do. Mine's different. I need a variance for my roadways this way. And so bringing that, that's a reasonable procedure, it's not dissimilar from a setback variance or other area type of setback or variance?
So here's, and I may be wrong in my thought process. To me, the variance is already worked in. If you cannot meet public road standards, it stays under the private road docket or road standard.
Now, are getting there?
Yes, we're getting there.
Right, before.
So therefore, why would you allow a variance that puts a public road in a position of being truly a private road, but the county's upkeeping it?
I mean, that goes back to my answer. That's why I wasn't, I don't want to put myself in a policy make position, but.
No, I'm just asking from.
That is a very good point, and that's the right question, I think, to ask.
Yeah, and like I said, it's, this not being a zoning issue, it's being a road standard, kind of reminds me of telling my child, hey, I'm gonna leave you for the weekend, you take care of my home. And then when I come back, he's demolished the home and got a dirt track there. He's done something outside of the scope of intent. And that's why I'm asking is, do road standards fall underneath zoning variance? And if not, then I think this is a portion we need to strike.
I think one, they can fall under zoning. I think they fall more under land division, but there's always a coupled issue with it. But that's ancillary. I think to your point, if it does end up that hey, we're doing the public road standards, design and construction on private roads, but we're not gonna have anything to do with them language that is in the current code, if that is done away with, then I think your paradigm works, yeah. We just say, there's no variances, these are our public road standards, our purpose. And if you're gonna, you need to deviate, then it needs to be private. Is that draconian? I don't know, but that's for the policy people to make that decision.
Sounds reasonable.
So my motion is to remove section 26-8.
So let me ask the question. Sanctuary point, no, not sanctuary point. What's the point there where the road, the big, I'm trying to think of the example. We had a specific example where the Board of Zoning Appeals approved a narrower right of way.
They did that on Arrowhead Point.
Arrowhead Point, yeah, that's it. So if this wasn't in here, could they have done that?
Arrow, Mr. Root could probably explain better. I think that was a private road.
It was an amalgamation of issues. There could have been perhaps another way that they could have tackled that, but I think that's the lead way, and I think that was the way they pursued it.
But it was a variance, right?
It was a variance.
It was a
from the road
variance
standards.
in accordance with 26A that the Board of Zoning Appeals approved.
Yes, that was the primary issue, yes, sir.
So how would we tackle that issue if we didn't have this section?
You wouldn't, and I think they would have to remain private. But they couldn't do private back then, and they still couldn't now, because private roads had to be designed and built to public road standards, if you remember those two tag-along provisions under private roads. So they couldn't, but now, if you don't have those same private road standards, then arguably they would be able to, okay, we're not gonna go public, we're just, what's your standards, we're gonna build it this way.
The only reason I would think that we should leave it is trying to predict the future and going, okay, I've seen some planned unit development communities that are walking communities, really in municipalities, where you have tiny homes, sidewalks connecting all of the homes and connecting it to the access down to the grocery store, the community store, or this or that, and nothing that we have right now falls within that. But somebody says, hey, I wanna widen my road so that I can put parking on the road, I wanna do these other things, and having something in there as the opportunity still to create a variance, to me, is important. Is there any way to put anything, other than having our conversation, to tell the BZA that just under normal circumstances, they should pick one or the other? Unless there's something that that really does truly fall out of the lines of. Again, because under our public road standards, we really don't have this roadside parking type stuff. We really don't have any of these planned unit development where there is mix of commercial and high density and low density and estate lots and all of this stuff
So,
within our ordinances currently.
yeah, and I understand where you're going, but what it creates is a nightmare, for law enforcement, for, parking on the roadway, for is, citizens as a whole, understanding what they can do, where it's, to me, it makes more sense. It either falls within the public road standards, you're either able to meet that, or you fall within private road standards. And if you want to create that type of community, mixed-use community, with all of those things, and you're not able to meet the public road standards, then you remain private, and you don't have to worry about the county going out here and cutting down somebody's bushes because they thought they had, X amount of right-of-way.
I guess what I'm seeing in the public road standards, and I probably would need to read them again, but the public road standards have a set pavement width.
Correct.
What if I wanted to exceed that pavement width?
I don't think that creates a problem, exceeding the pavement width.
Does it state though that
Because it
pavement
says
width
minimal,
must be?
if I-
Oh, does it? Because that's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering, does it say minimum? Or could you expand beyond that if you wanted to, is the question under public? Yes,
Point
sir.
of order. So I wasn't prepared to even discuss this. This is a whole section. It's an important discussion, and there's nothing on the agenda about it. There's no specifics that we were provided, so I prefer not to vote on it.
Okay.
And the reason I brought this up is I knew it was going to take some in-depth study from Mr. Root. Both of these two items I brought up before we jump into the others. So we could be prepared for our next meeting.
Well, making a motion to remove
Move on?
it was probably premature then.
Do what?
I said, making a motion to completely remove it was probably premature then.
Yes, you are correct.
All right, then moving on 26,
So I withdraw that motion.
okay?
Thank you,
sir.
Dave. Keep me on track. All right, so let's go to the front of the document, 26.
If I may?
Yes.
You had asked about the administrator's authority, that is in section 26-6, number 10. Sorry to interrupt.
So the document starting at 26-1, we're looking, the areas in green have previously been adopted as votes. Of
Correct.
change, the things in blue where the things in yellow have not been. Is that correct?
Yes.
So for example, 26-1-3,
Correct, 2613, removing engineer or his designee. Actually, I thought that was already done. But basically, we got in there required by state law.
as required by state law, and removing that somebody makes a discretionary call.
Correct. So, I make a motion to remove on 26-1-3, engineer or his or her designee.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Everybody see where we are on the page? All those in favor of that removal, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Blue looked like it was added language brought over from, we're looking at
From chapter 32, and it is.
32.
So the definition in chapter 32, we had to marry it with the private road standard regulation. So it captured everything. And you're right, I should have used white letters.
But you can see it written in red down there below, just. The stuff that's hidden in blue is also written in red below it, I believe.
I can read it out for you. So section 26-2A, private driveways. A private driveway means a driveway that is providing vehicular access to the road frontage to not more than 3 single-family residential lots. And removed residential dwellings. We voted on residential dwellings, so we ain't got to discuss that. And we also voted to remove shall serve no. So basically, we're voting tonight on the definition portion, which is a private driveway means a driveway that provides vehicular access to the road frontage, to not, and then skipped singular family residential lots.
So are we voting on all the blue items? with
On all
red?
the blue, yep.
Yes. The items in green have already been changed. The items in blue are bring-overs from 32 to be defined here in 26.
And the red below it is what was brought over.
I'll second the motion to adopt the definition of private driveways in section 26-2 alpha.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Does everybody have an understanding and any discussion on that? All
Why
in-
are we limited to 3 single-family dwellings on a private driveway?
Private driveway, so serve no more than 3. What was your question?
Why are we limited to only 3? Like if you got a family, you got 4 children, and your house is already there.
That ends up being a private drive rather than a driveway, and that's been historical.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're not, it wasn't our intent to change that. That's been that way for a while. The private drive and the private driveway and the number of, residencies that it addresses.
Well,
We hadn't intended to change those definitions.
and I think the biggest reason why we had not intended to change those was because really your private roads, the regulating factor is International Fire Code and International Building Codes. Anything else, in my view, is just a contractual agreement between 2 property owners or 5 property owners. But because of those codes, and I think it's a R3 group that's exempt, and I forgot the other one, I'm going off memory here. But once you get above so many residents, there is a mandatory road width requirement for the fire code. And that's where that 20-foot comes in over in private drives.
Where we changed from driveway to drive.
Right, and that's where we're pulling that from, is that hard pack 20-foot. I would have to go back, and that's a good question.
It's a good question. I think that is why we voted the way we voted originally, was because of fire code.
Right, and I have to go back and verify how many residential units in the R3 group and the other exempt groupings would fall under that private driveway.
See, that's the confusion part there. If you call it a driveway, when you're submitting it, and you want to drive, okay. I would,
Well, a drive is 4 to 10.
right, but, it needs to be, in this same area,
Right here, it's on, right here. Private drives,
so,
page 3. Next page over.
next page over,
And right.
okay. But For
Did
me,
that get you there, or do we still?
okay, the drive and driveways, that's.
Drive and driveway has always been confusing, but it is how we've done it, and it's how, it seems to be fairly standard throughout at least area counties. Now, I'm not in favor of saying because XYZ county does it, we're gonna do it, but it has been on our plats and things like that for a long time. From driveway to drive. Do we wanna keep talking about that, or?
Did that satisfy you, or?
Okay, like, your 911 address. Okay, you, like, you put drive behind it, the DR, or if it's the driveway, how do you?
It's really about plat designation and road construction more so than anything else, and as far as addressing is concerned.
And to kind of add to that is, long time ago, they used to, you used to be able to name your driveway, you cannot do that anymore.
So
It's
if your
just
driveway is
address.
a mile long,
Okay, so, it has to, I think it's, 200 feet from the road, sorry. 200 feet from the road, you get it, but if it's right at the road,
Okay.
But to that point, drive, road, street are all designations in an address as well as definitions that we've been trying to shuffle around, trying to deal with, so.
Driveway is not.
That's correct.
So right now, we're looking at and voting on whether to move, along with these additional ancillary discussions.
Weird, because the driveway has
The stuff in blue was brought over from chapter 32
correct?
into 26. And we have a motion on the floor under A to add that private driveway means a driveway that provides access and road frontage of not more than 3 single-family residential lots. I know that we had scratched dwellings because dwellings and lots could mean multiple things under the same roof. Single family, it seems like we defined single family somewhere else in the process.
Single family is over in chapter 32.
So as long as we have an understanding of what that is, everything else in black and white remains as it stands. Is there any additional discussion on this? All those in favor of that motion of change signify by saying aye.
Aye.
you know,
Do you want to go to B?
I was trying to get that single.
That's
family.
okay.
Okay. 'Cause that's gonna hurt.
Is it bug you? I'll pick it up, then right there, it looks like that there's under B, moving over.
Oh, I remember why we put single family in there. So we got residential subdivisions and non-residential subdivisions. And single family dealt with it ensured that we didn't get quadplexes, duplexes, those
Gotcha.
kind of things in there
Under those
underneath that
lots.
single family, because once again, because of the amount of dwellings, it would require the upgrade on the road.
Right.
And
Gotcha.
that's why it's single family lots. So there's, the occupants are
Yep,
of a
I
single
remember
family.
that now. All
And that's
right.
why I had to go look.
Yeah. I knew you'd have a good reason. So.
All right, so now we're moving.
Drives.
Yes, so
Bring
now
that
we're under
definition.
drives. We moved the definition over from chapter 32. Private drive means a privately owned and maintained right-of-way or easement that specifically grants the rights for the road work that provides vehicular access to the road frontage and not less than 4 and not more than 10 single-family residential lots. I make a motion to approve this verbiage.
Second.
Joe, were you the one that seconded that? Any discussion on this, moving the definition from 32 over here? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
unanimous?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, pick up the rest of this in the next meeting.
Is it 8 o'clock? Let's do one more. We're getting close to 8 o'clock. I second that motion. You gonna second it? Come
We
on,
have-
one more.
We have a motion on the floor, and we have a second to adjourn with the rest of this being dealt with at the next meeting.
Plenty to do.
Hey, we're close.
We are getting very close. Gentlemen, all those in favor of adjournment, as it's close to 8 o'clock, signify by saying aye.
Minutes.
Even me.